there's another element that we haven't discussed that's implicated in this too, is that there is another part of the media that seems to have a real problem that is not terribly dissimilar from that at Fox. Now, Fox will come out and they will say, and Tucker Carlson this week actually made a point of trying to argue that, white supremacy is a hoax. It doesn't exist in this country, that it's not even a problem at all. And he should tell that to literally the millions of Latinos who feel like they're being targeted. But there's also another problem with supposed neutral media outlets and their opinion pages. I'm thinking about the New York Times. I'm thinking about columnists like Ross Dathout and Brett Stevens, who and even David Brooks as well, who will launder these sentiments. They'll promote it and they'll say, what about the legitimate concerns of these people? And they will describe the same dynamic that the El Paso shooter would, but with just a little bit nicer language and with some type of arm's length. Like, I'm not saying this. I'm saying they're saying this, and we need to pay attention to that. We need to react to that, and we need to change that. We may need to, make some, negotiations with them. And then, of course, there was the headline this week, right?
Right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
The New York Times headline, which
indeed.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've been astonished. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I think there's been some really good reporting in the aftermath of these shootings, more than usual. And I think that there is something kind of shifting in the way that many in the media are covering this. Having said that, though, there is still way, way, way too much of this idea of, let's go to the diner and find out what the Trump voters think about all this. And the idea that somehow there's equally valid, ideas coming out of what we would call white supremacy, or somehow that we need to understand them and, look at what's motivating them and try and, sympathize in some way. And worst of all, that headline, which basically was giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt that somehow or another that canned speech of his that he gave last Monday, which was, looked like he was doing a hostage video, and he even got the name of Dayton wrong and said it was Toledo, that somehow or another that showed some kind of shift in him, and that he was, recognizing, he was changing his tune on all of this. And what were the exact words of the headline? I can't remember just off the top of my head.
He had a national call for unity or something to that effect.
National call for unity. I mean, it's a joke. And of course, there has been one person who's been really great on this, and that's Beto O'Rourke, who's from El Paso and has very passionate feelings about his hometown anyway. And he came out when the press, I think it was a reporter who came up to him and said, do you think the president is a racist? And he just kind of lost it. And it was a video that went viral of him going, what is wrong with you people? Why are you asking that question? Why are you even asking that question? And making the point that it is self-evident that the president is a racist, that of course he bears some responsibility for the rhetoric that he has been using now for 3 years. And, his agitation, I think, was very heartfelt, and I think people responded to it, as compared to this dry headline in the New York Times. Sort of the president, calls for unity after the massacres, as if that, for one thing, no one believes him. Of course, he said that. He said that before. He says it all the time. He doesn't mean it. He comes out afterwards and goes directly back to what he said before. And that is the reality. That's the truth. You can't just be reporting, this is what he said and just say it, without context, especially in a big headline like that. I mean, this is the New York Times. It came out. And the aftermath was very interesting because people exploded about this. There was a surge in cancellations of subscriptions, some by some prominent journalists themselves for other publications. And apparently, according to what we read, there was a lot of internal anger about this as well at the New York Times. And the problem there seems to be the editor of the New York Times, Dean Baquet, who, honestly, I just think that the man really needs to go. Because from 2015 on, when he's been covering Donald Trump, it's clear he does not understand what's going on here, or at least is unwilling to recognize it. And he said, when questioned about this headline, he said, well, I don't really see this as being an aberration. I grew up in Louisiana, and we had Edwin Edwards. Who would say that? It's David Duke that is the correlation here, not Edwin Edwards, who, by the way, was, an ass, but, nonetheless.
Well, also, we're talking decades and decades ago. I mean, we're talking about a time where there was anti-miscegenation laws probably on the books.
Absolutely. And he's talking about this like, this is just American politics. No, it is not. We're having, mass murder in the name of, of white supremacy, talking about invasion, which the President of the United States and a major news network and an entire media apparatus are using the same language as the person who committed the massacre. That is not business as usual. I'm sorry. Even in America, I know we have a terrible history, but, we haven't seen anything like that for, more than a century. I mean, this is the kind of thing that this is unusual in our time to see this kind of behavior. And the editor of the New York Times, who, like it or not, it's the paper of record. And they set the tone for a lot of other people. And you saw it with others, too. Norah O'Donnell on CBS said, well, the president really sounded like he sincerely wanted to change the tone or something along those lines. And I'm just going, are you kidding? After all we've seen with Donald Trump, after both sides, they were good people on both sides. And, he is an apologist for these people over and over and over again. And I actually thought one of the best answers to all of this came from Tim Ryan, who I'm not a particular fan of. But when asked, do you think the president is a white supremacist, his answer was, well, the white supremacists certainly think so. And,
right.
And that is the truth. I mean, these people think he's great. After the election, they were up there saying, Heil Trump. I mean, this is not the fact that the media is refusing to recognize this reality and just say it out, as Beto O'Rourke was saying, what are you, nuts? Of course he is. That is just, it's intensely frustrating, and it continues to enable him.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you, why do you think they keep doing it?